Welcome to this deep dive, listeners. We're going to explore the JFK assassination together today.
Mm-hmm.
Some really intriguing details and inconsistencies surrounding that, fateful day in Dallas.
Right.
And our source material, as you know, is the Fourth Decade Journal.
Yeah.
So much in here.
It really is packed with so many different perspectives on the JFK assassination.
So, yeah, it's a real puzzle.
It really is. It challenges us to go beyond the official narrative.
Yeah, to grapple with those alternative interpretations, the ones that really make you think.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's jump in. We're starting with a photo that really grabbed my attention. A photo of those three tramps
Yes.
arrested near Dealey Plaza right after the assassination. This photo, it's become a legend in itself. I mean, so many conspiracy theories.
It's true. I mean, a single image can fuel so much debate. It really shows, how much mystery surrounds the JFK assassination.
Totally. And the desire to find answers beyond, just the official narrative. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. One of these tramps
Mm-hmm.
has been identified by some as Chauncey Holt,
Right.
a figure who claimed to have, connections to the CIA.
Oh, wow.
Now, if this is true,
It really raises the stakes.
doesn't it? It adds a whole new layer.
But, the evidence about Holt's claims, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Makes it tough to figure out if he's, the real deal or just a really good storyteller.
A master manipulator.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, some sources do seem to back up parts of his story, while others, they really make you question his credibility.
It's true.
So it's almost like he's this character in a spy novel.
You never really know with him.
Is he a reliable source or just making it all up as he goes along?
Mm.
And to add to that, it gets even more interesting. Some researchers think that another one of those tramps is Charles Harrelson,
Oh, wow.
the father of the actor Woody Harrelson.
Right. And some even say there's a link between Harrelson and Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, that's a connection that needs to be looked at really carefully.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
the JFK assassination, it's full of these kind of connections.
It really is.
Some of them might be, nothing, just coincidence.
Right, exactly. You have to separate the genuine links from just pure chance.
Totally. Yeah. It's a real puzzle. Some pieces seem to fit, but then others not so much.
That's true.
Now let's move on from this photo to the alleged sniper's nest in the Texas School Book Depository.
Okay.
What if, and this is a big what if, the sniper's nest was actually staged
Stage.
after the assassination?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating question. It really challenges our ideas about the crime scene.
Right.
Like what we see in those famous photos
Right.
might not actually be what happened at that moment.
Yeah. And there's one thing that really fuels this whole idea. A photograph in the New York Times, November 23, 1963, it shows a different arrangement of bakas in the sixth floor window.
Oh, really? Different from the later pictures of the sniper's nest.
Totally different. Yeah. So why would anyone, stage the sniper's nest?
That's a good question.
Could it be something to do with the difficulty of shooting accurately from that spot?
I mean, that discrepancy really makes you wonder if someone was trying to change the scene,
Yeah.
to make it fit a certain story.
Mm.
Or maybe there's a simpler explanation.
Maybe. It's such a puzzle though. The pieces just don't quite fit.
Sure.
Let's look at Lee Harvey Oswald's life in New Orleans.
Okay.
But this time let's look at it through this this lens of a big surveillance state.
That's an interesting angle.
Yeah. So during the Cold War, the government was watching people,
Right.
groups.
So you're thinking that surveillance might have had something to do with what happened to Kennedy.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
So to illustrate this, I want to talk about Hugh Murray.
Oh.
He was a civil rights activist
Oh, right.
and a teacher in New Orleans. He had some indirect encounters with Oswald.
Interesting.
His story, it really gives you a chilling picture of what it was like, to live under constant watch.
I see. Well, his involvement in the civil rights movement would have put him right in the FBI's sights.
Yeah.
They were watching civil rights groups really closely back then.
They were. Imagine the FBI showing up at your parents' home and photocopying every name, every number in your address book.
Wow.
That's what happened to Murray. He talked about feeling like like he was constantly watched.
That must have been incredibly unsettling.
Yeah, it created this climate of suspicion and fear.
It really it makes you think about government overreach
Yeah.
and the loss of privacy.
Exactly. And remember, this is all happening while Oswald's moving in the same circles in New Orleans. He was connected to some pretty interesting people, like Guy Bannister.
Oh, right, Bannister. He was a former FBI agent, wasn't he?
Yeah.
With alleged ties to anti-Castro groups.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. So now you've got this potential link to anti-Castro activities.
Right.
It just it adds another layer to Oswald's story, doesn't it?
It really does. And here's a weird thing. Murray actually knew Bannister personally
How?
through his girlfriend's father at the time. Later, after the assassination, Bannister, he was hired to provide security for the school where Murray was teaching.
Oh, wow. So they were connected in multiple ways.
They were. It's like everyone's kind of linked, even if it's just through a few degrees of separation.
It's true. It's like a web of connections.
And another figure connected to Oswald is David Ferry.
Oh, yes. Ferry, a fascinating character.
He is. Tragic story, too.
It really is.
He was a pilot and a former Civil Air Patrol instructor.
Right.
You know, Murray's roommate, he had actually been in the Civil Air Patrol under Ferry when he was a teenager.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it gives you a different perspective on Ferry, you know.
Yeah, it does.
Not just the quirky, maybe sinister figure you see in the media.
Right.
Murray's roommate described him as this charismatic leader dedicated to helping troubled youth.
It shows how important it is to get different viewpoints.
It does.
When you're looking at the people connected to the JFK assassination,
Yeah.
people are complicated.
Yeah.
Their actions, their motives, they're hard to figure out sometimes.
Yeah, they really are. But there's a darker side to Ferry too. He was linked to anti-Castro activities.
Right.
And was even investigated in connection with the assassination.
Right.
And being connected to figures like Bannister and Ferry, it really makes you wonder: was Oswald really a lone nut?
As the Warren Commission said.
Yeah, or was he part of something bigger?
Something more organized.
Yeah, entangled in this web of intelligence operations.
And anti-Castro activities.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, those figures being in Oswald's life, it really makes the lone gunman theory a lot harder to believe.
Doesn't it?
It does. And it makes you think, were there other people, other groups, maybe with their own political goals, who wanted Kennedy gone?
Yeah. It's like peeling back layers of an onion.
With each layer, the story just gets more intriguing.
Doesn't it? And speaking of intriguing characters, let me introduce you to Reuben Honest Joe Goldstein.
Okay.
He was a pawn shop owner in Dallas.
Right.
And he was at the assassination scene.
Mm.
And at the scene of Oswald's shooting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That makes him pretty important to anyone who's researching this, doesn't it?
It does. There's so much conflicting information about him being there, though.
Really?
Yeah. The descriptions of the vehicle he was driving that day, they don't match up.
Oh.
Some witnesses say it was a car, others a van, a truck. There's even one account that says it was a white panel truck.
A panel truck?
With a model machine gun bolted to the outside.
A model machine gun. That's strange.
Isn't it?
It really makes you wonder, how reliable are these witness accounts?
Right. It's like you're trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
And some of the pieces, they're from a different puzzle.
I see.
And then there's this discrepancy between Goldstein's own statements and the evidence.
What do you mean?
He told the FBI that he wasn't a personal friend of Jack Ruby, but he was listed as a pallbearer at Ruby's funeral.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty big inconsistency.
It is. It really makes you wonder what Goldstein's role in all of this was.
It does.
And it gets even more complicated. Goldstein had ties to 4 Dallas law enforcement officials.
Law enforcement?
Yeah, and they were all connected to the assassination investigation.
So you've got Goldstein connected to multiple people in the Dallas police.
Yeah.
And they're all linked to the investigation.
Right.
Were those connections just coincidence?
Or did they influence the investigation?
That's a good question.
Yeah. And then there's his connection to a Ruby associate named Harmon Sheps.
Jeps.
the Sheps family. That's a whole other story.
Oh, tell me about it.
They were a wealthy Dallas family, suspected mob ties.
Mm.
Some people say they might have had a hand in influencing how things played out.
Wow. So you've got this idea that power and influence can work in these subtle ways.
Yeah.
And that people who seem totally unconnected, they might actually have a big impact on what happens.
Exactly. And this brings us to this recurring theme in the fourth decade.
Okay.
A lot of skepticism about the Warren Commission report.
The official investigation.
Right.
And Gerald Posner's book, Case Closed.
Yeah, case closed.
They both came out so strongly in favor of the lone gunman theory.
We did.
And I think these doubts, they come from a feeling that maybe the official story isn't the whole story.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, like there's something more to it.
Exactly. And the authors in the fourth decade, they point to these specific instances where, maybe information was held back.
Right.
Or discrepancies were kind of ignored.
Mm.
Or alternative explanations were just dismissed.
Without even considering them.
Yeah.
It's like a chorus of voices saying, hold on, are we really sure about this? Is this the whole story?
Yeah. And it's not just speculation.
Right.
They point to specific things like disputed facts about Senator Richard Russell's involvement in the Warren Commission hearings.
Yeah. Or challenges to the single bullet theory.
Right, exactly.
And even suggestions of evidence tampering.
That's a serious allegation.
It is.
Evidence tampering, it really throws the whole integrity of the investigation into question.
It does. It's like someone's trying to control the narrative.
Yeah, to make the story fit a certain way.
It's a reminder that history, it's often written by the people in power.
That's true.
And it's our responsibility to really look at those narratives and to seek out other perspectives.
And that's something that the fourth decade does really well, don't you think?
They do. It's one of the things I appreciate about it. It's their collaborative approach.
Right. They feature those letters to the editor from readers and researchers.
Right. Sharing their insights, corrections.
Challenging what was previously published.
Right. It makes the fourth decade a really valuable resource.
It does.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to really dig deep into the JFK assassination.
Yeah. It acknowledges that that the search for truth,
Right.
It's an ongoing thing.
It really is. And it needs contributions from lots of different viewpoints.
Exactly. So let's take a look at some of these compelling letters. One of them, it dives into the mystery of Lee Harvey Oswald's interrogation tapes.
Oh, yes.
14 hours of recordings, but their existence is it's shrouded in secrecy. Where are they?
That's a good question.
Are they even real?
And if they are, what do they say?
What do they tell us about Oswald's motives, his connections,
Right.
and the events leading up to the assassination?
It really makes you question the transparency of the investigation.
Doesn't it?
I mean, have they been keeping crucial evidence from the public?
It's frustrating, to be told to trust the official investigations, to
Right.
follow the evidence, but then crucial pieces just seem to have vanished.
Or they're being kept secret.
Yeah.
It really undermines trust in the official story.
Doesn't it? Like, if they have nothing to hide.
Why not just release everything?
Yeah. Let the public decide.
Exactly. Let people draw their own conclusions.
Right. Another letter, it highlights these discrepancies in how key witness testimonies were reported. Specifically, James Tague and Rose Jeremy.
Okay. Remind me.
Tague was a witness in Dealey Plaza. He was allegedly hit by a fragment from one of the shots.
Right.
And Jeremy was a patient in a psychiatric ward. She reportedly predicted the assassination.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about their testimonies?
Well, these discrepancies, they revolve around Gerald Posner's case closed.
Okay.
He claimed that Tague didn't know which shot hit him.
What?
But Posner's own sources, they actually contradict that.
Really?
And regarding Jeremy, Posner said she only mentioned her prediction after the assassination.
So she had this vision, but didn't say anything until after Kennedy was shot.
That's what he claimed. But there's documentation showing that she made this prediction before.
Oh, wow.
She even reported it to a Louisiana State Police lieutenant.
So Posner's account is wrong on both counts.
It is. And these discrepancies, they might seem small,
Right.
but they make you question how thorough Posner's research really was.
They do.
Yeah.
Especially since he was so set on defending the lone gunman theory.
Yeah.
It suggests that maybe he was choosing information.
Selecting it carefully.
Yeah, to make his story work.
It's a reminder that even really well-researched books
Right.
can have inaccuracies and biases.
It's true. We always have to be careful about our sources.
Yeah, we do. And another letter in the fourth decade, it takes on Robert Morrow.
Morrow, he was a controversial figure.
He was claimed to have, inside knowledge about the assassination.
Oh, right.
This letter, it looks into Morrow's connection to Mario Coley.
Who was Coley?
He was a prominent anti-Castro operative.
So Morrow might have been talking to people who were possibly involved in the assassination?
Possibly, yeah.
And that would mean he had access to information that most people didn't.
Exactly. But Morrow's claims, they're this mix of verifiable information and unsubstantiated allegations.
So it's hard to know what to believe.
It really is.
Was he telling the truth, or was it just for attention?
Maybe he was trying to make some money off of it.
Personal gain.
Yeah.
It's a question that researchers are still debating.
They are. It shows just how tricky it is to deal with sources who say they have inside knowledge. Are they telling the truth,
right,
or are they trying to promote their own agenda? Right.
It's a reminder that we need to be skeptical.
We do. We need to consider the source, their motivations, and be aware of bias and misinformation.
Always.
Now, let's look at a letter that raises concerns about, balanced reporting.
Balanced reporting.
Yeah, about the JFK assassination, especially during the 30th anniversary coverage.
Okay. What happened with the coverage?
Well, this letter, it talks about a specific editorial in a major Canadian newspaper.
Right.
It praised Case Closed.
That book by Posner.
Yeah, but it dismissed all the other theories.
Calling them what?
Crackpot.
That's not very balanced, is it?
It's not, and it reflects this, this bigger trend in media coverage,
where they present the lone gunman theory as fact,
and anything else is marginalized or ridiculed.
Right.
And it creates this oversimplified, often inaccurate understanding of the JFK assassination.
And it stops people from talking about it, from having open debates.
Exactly. We have to remember that the media really shapes public perception.
It does, especially when it comes to these these complex events like the JFK assassination.
Right. We need balanced and nuanced reporting,
so people can have informed discussions.
Yeah.
And be critical thinkers.
Exactly. Another letter that I thought was interesting. It focuses on Jean Hill.
Jean Hill.
She was a key witness, claimed to have seen the assassination.
Oh, right, from Dealey Plaza.
Yeah. Her testimony, it's both fascinating and kind of frustrating.
How so?
Well, she was one of the most prominent witnesses.
Right.
But her accounts have they've been questioned a lot.
Yeah.
This letter points out inconsistencies in the things she said over the years.
Really?
Yeah. It makes you wonder how reliable she really was.
It does. I mean, could these inconsistencies be, because of the trauma of seeing something so awful?
Maybe. Or maybe she was influenced by other people.
Or maybe she just, wanted attention.
It's possible.
It brings up a bigger issue, though.
What's that?
How do we decide if a witness is credible?
Especially when their stories have changed over time.
Exactly. It's something we deal with any historical event, really.
Not just the JFK assassination.
Right. Memories can change.
And witness accounts, they can be influenced by all sorts of things.
Stress.
Trauma.
Time.
Exactly.
And another letter really digs into the rifle.
The rifle allegedly used in the assassination.
Yeah, the debate about whether it's whether it's really the one they found in the Texas school book depository.
Right.
There's that famous backyard photo of Oswald.
Holding a rifle.
Right.
So is it the same rifle?
That's the question. This letter, it challenges those photographic comparisons.
The ones that say the rifles are different.
Yeah. It points to the House Select Committee on Assassinations. They concluded that it was the same rifle.
They did. It really shows how important expert analysis is.
Right, and scientific evidence.
When you're evaluating these claims,
It's a call for more rigor.
for being evidence-based.
Researchers need to show proof.
Not just speculation or subjective opinions.
Exactly.
Let's shift gears now to a letter that explores intelligence operations and anti-Castro activities. It's about Maurice Bishop.
Maurice Bishop, he was a mysterious figure.
Some people think he played a key role in the events around the assassination.
Interesting.
This letter, it focuses on a book by Gaetan Fonzi.
Fonzi was he was a respected JFK researcher.
He was. He investigated Bishop.
Okay. What did he find?
Well, his investigation led him to David Atlee Phillips. He was a high-ranking CIA officer.
Where was he stationed?
Mexico City.
Mexico City.
At the time of the assassination.
Oh, wow.
Mexico City, that's where Oswald was allegedly meeting with Cuban and Soviet officials.
Just weeks before Kennedy was killed.
Yeah.
So what about this Phillips guy? What does Fonzi find out about him?
Fonzi's book, it presented evidence that Phillips might have been the man behind the Maurice Bishop alias.
So Phillips was pretending to be Bishop?
Maybe. And that he might have been involved in a plot to frame Oswald.
To make Oswald the fall guy?
Yeah. It's a shocking claim.
It is. It suggests that there was deception.
Manipulation.
At the highest levels of the intelligence community.
It does. It really it raises questions about how far people in power will go.
To protect themselves.
To get what they want.
And to control the story.
It also shows how important investigative journalism is.
Right. And independent researchers.
People who are willing to challenge the official narrative.
And to uncover the truth.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Especially when it's uncomfortable.
And speaking of uncomfortable truths, another letter addresses the issue of fake evidence.
Right. We've talked about that a bit already.
Yeah, figuring out what's real and what's not.
Not an easy task.
Not at all. This letter, it takes on the idea that, you can't build a case on fake evidence.
Because you can't be sure what the real evidence is.
Exactly.
It's a tough problem. I mean, if we can't even trust the evidence, then how can we ever get to the truth?
That's the question. But the letter, it argues that it is possible.
To tell the difference between real evidence and made-up stuff.
Yeah. Even though it's hard.
So it's about being really careful.
Examining everything.
Looking for inconsistencies.
Understanding the motives of the people who might be, spreading lies.
It's like being a detective. You have to search for clues.
To find the truth.
Exactly. The letter talks about the legal system.
Juries have to evaluate evidence all the time.
Right. Even when it's complicated or contradictory.
And they have to decide if it's authentic.
And they use, the chain of custody.
The chain of custody.
Yeah, it's about knowing where the evidence came from, who handled it.
So you can see if there were chances for someone to tamper with it.
Exactly. So it's not just about the evidence itself.
Right.
It's about its history.
Its journey from the event to the courtroom.
Or the history book.
To see if we can trust it.
Right.
This letter also brings up
David Lifton's work.
Right. The medical evidence.
Yeah. He really raised some serious doubts about it, about whether it was authentic.
Yeah.
This letter argues that Lifton's theory of body alteration, it could actually explain some of the things that don't make sense.
The discrepancies.
Yeah. And the claims that there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll.
If the wounds were changed, it would explain why there are all these different accounts about them, right?
Right, where they were, what they looked like, and it opens up the possibility that maybe there were more than one shooter.
Yeah, a bigger conspiracy.
Exactly.
It's a theory that makes you think.
It does.
It reminds us to be open,
right,
to those challenging possibilities, even when they seem shocking.
Yeah, or like They don't make sense.
Right.
But that's what the search for truth is all about.
Questioning everything.
Being willing to look at what we think we know.
And the fourth decade, it keeps bringing up these fascinating details.
It does.
This next one is about the Texas School Book Depository building itself.
Oh, okay.
This letter, it corrects a mistake about the building's history. Apparently, it was used as a warehouse for the Southern Rock Island Plow Company.
Before it was the Texas School Book Depository.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty minor detail.
It does, but it really shows how important it is to be accurate, you know, to pay attention to every detail.
When you're researching something like this, you can't afford to overlook anything, right?
No.
Every bit of information, every little fact, it could be a clue.
Yeah, it could lead us to a better understanding of what really happened.
Okay.
And this correction, it shows how collaborative, you know, JFK research is.
Oh, right.
It was a reader who noticed the error, and they wrote in.
And got it corrected.
Right. It shows how valuable it is to have multiple perspectives.
Yeah. To have a community of researchers who are all working toward the same goal.
Finding the truth.
That's right.
Speaking of finding the truth, there's another letter that looks into a photograph of Lee Harvey Oswald with his wife Marina.
Okay.
And their daughter June.
So a family photo.
Yeah. Some people believe that this image might be fake.
A fake photograph.
Yeah. This letter, it analyzes the photo in detail, pointing out inconsistencies.
That suggested might have been, manipulated.
Yeah.
Or that it's a composite image.
Yeah, like inconsistencies in the lighting, or the baby's eye seems to be painted in.
Painted in?
Yeah. And Oswald's nose, it looks unusually long.
That's weird. I mean, why would anyone go to the trouble of faking a photograph like that?
That's the question, isn't it?
If it is fake, what was the point? Who was it supposed to help?
It's another one of those pieces that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, was evidence manipulated in this case?
It also makes you think about trust, you know?
Right.
What can we believe when photos, documents, even physical evidence could be fake?
It's a huge challenge for researchers.
It is.
It really shows how important it is to think critically.
To be skeptical.
Yeah.
To question even the sources that seem, the most reliable.
Yeah. We have to remember that there's always the possibility of bias.
Yeah. Manipulation.
People twisting information.
On purpose.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go back to the medical evidence for a minute. Specifically, President Kennedy's throat wound.
Okay.
There's a re-examination of the wound based on Dr. Malcolm Perry's testimony.
Dr. Perry was one of the doctors who treated Kennedy at Parkland's Hospital.
He was.
Right.
This re-examination, it focuses on Dr. Perry's description of the wound. He said it was perhaps 5 millimeters in diameter.
5 millimeters?
Yeah. And researchers, they were able to kind of reconstruct the wound.
Using photographs and measurements.
Right. And they came up with a size that matched Dr. Perry's description.
So they were able to back up what Dr. Perry said with physical evidence.
Exactly. It shows how important it is to go back to the original sources.
Yeah. And to really look at those witness testimonies.
Even the ones that have been, examined so many times before.
Right.
You can still find new insights.
If you ask the right questions.
Yeah. And challenge the existing interpretations.
Exactly. It also shows that we need to be very precise when we're dealing with medical evidence.
Right.
Even the smallest differences in measurements or descriptions, they can really matter.
They can change the whole story.
Yeah, they can.
Now, let's talk about Governor John Connally's movements. He was riding with President Kennedy.
Right.
And was also wounded. His movements are they're crucial to understanding what happened in Dealey Plaza.
Especially when you're looking at the single bullet theory.
Exactly.
Connally's injuries are a big part of that theory. The one that says a single bullet went through Kennedy and then hit Connally.
So, what do we know about Connally's movements?
Well, there are differences between what Connally said at first and what he said later when he testified to the Warren Commission.
Oh, really? What did he change?
At first, he said that he turned to his left after he heard the first shot. But when he talked to the Warren Commission, he didn't mention turning left at all. He said he looked over his right shoulder before he was hit.
And that version, it fits better with the single bullet theory, right?
It does. But is there any proof of him turning left?
Yeah, actually. There's a witness, S.M. Holland. He said he saw Connolly turn to the right and then back to the left before the second shot.
Mm.
And a hospital spokesman said that that Connolly's surgeon, Dr. Robert Shaw, had told him that if Connolly hadn't turned left, the bullet would have hit his heart.
Oh, wow.
So you've got a witness and a doctor who both support Connolly's original story.
The one where he turned left.
Yeah. Which makes you question, what he said to the Warren Commission.
He does. Maybe he was pressured to change his story.
To fit the official narrative.
Yeah. Or maybe someone convinced him that his memory was wrong.
It's a reminder that we can't always take what witnesses say at face value.
Right.
Especially when their stories have changed over time.
Or when they might have been, influenced by other people.
Yeah.
This is a case where every single detail matters.
It is.
Every movement, every word can be, analyzed and reinterpreted.
And that's what keeps it so fascinating.
Even all these years later.
Decades later. David Lifton's work.
Yeah, remember him? His analysis of the medical evidence.
Yeah, he really made some people question if it was even real.
Right, the authenticity of it all. And this letter, it basically argues that Lifton's theory, the one about body alteration, it could explain some of the things that don't add up.
Like the discrepancies we talked about.
Yeah, those. And it could also explain the people who say there was another shooter on the grassy knoll.
Yeah. If they changed the wounds, it would definitely explain why there are so many different stories about what they looked like.
Right. And where they were. And then, it could mean that there was more than one shooter.
A bigger conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a good reminder to be open to different ideas.
Yeah, even when they seem a little out there.
Right. Even when they're kind of shocking or don't seem to make sense at first.
Because that's how we find the truth, right?
Yeah. That's what it's all about. Questioning things and, re-examining what we think we know.
And that's what the fourth decade does so well. It just keeps bringing these little details to light.
Yeah, it really does. And this one's about the Texas School Book Depository building.
The building itself.
Yeah. This letter is a correction, actually. It's about the building's history.
Okay. What's the correction?
Well, it seems that the building, it was used as a warehouse for the Southern Rock Island Plow Company.
Before the Texas School Book Depository moved in.
Before, yeah.
It seems like a kind of a small thing.
It does. But it shows how important it is to get everything right,
Yeah.
To pay attention to those little details.
Yeah, I guess when you're researching something like this, every little thing could be important.
Yeah, anything could be a clue, really.
Right. It can help us understand, what really happened.
That's it. And this correction, it actually shows how much of a team effort JFK research is. Because it was a reader who caught the mistake.
And wrote in about it.
Right, and then they corrected it. It just shows how important it is to have a lot of people looking at things.
Different perspectives.
Yeah, different viewpoints. And to have a group of people who are, all working together to find the truth.
That's a good point. Speaking of finding the truth, there's another letter here that looks at a photograph of Lee Harvey Oswald with his wife Marina.
Okay.
And their daughter, June. Some people think this photo might be a fake.
A fake photo.
Yeah. And this letter, it analyzes it really closely, looking for inconsistencies, signs that it might have been altered.
Or that it was, put together from different pictures.
Right, a composite. They talk about inconsistencies in the lighting, for example.
Okay.
And they say that the baby's eye looks painted in.
Painted.
And that Oswald's nose looks too long.
It's strange that someone would go to all that trouble, to fake a photo.
I know, right?
It makes you wonder what the point was. Who would benefit from it being fake?
Yeah, it's another piece of this whole thing that just doesn't seem to fit.
Definitely. And it also raises the question, did someone mess with the evidence in this case?
It really makes you think about trust, what can we really believe when photos and documents and even, physical evidence might not be real.
That's a big problem for researchers, that's for sure. And it really shows how important it is to be critical, to not just accept things,
To be skeptical and to question everything, even when it comes from a source that we think is reliable.
Yeah, because there's always the possibility of bias, of people trying to manipulate things, twisting the information to fit their agenda.
Right. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the fourth decade and its look at the JFK assassination. It's been a fascinating journey exploring the different theories, the evidence, the doubts, the inconsistencies.
And, the thing about this case is that it keeps us asking questions. It makes us think about power, about secrecy, about the search for truth and justice.
It's a reminder that history isn't always neat and tidy. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes the answers are harder to find than we'd like them to be.
And we have to be willing to keep searching, to keep questioning, to keep digging for those answers.
And to be open to the possibility that what we thought we knew might not be the whole story.
Exactly. So to everyone listening, I encourage you to keep exploring the JFK assassination. Keep an open mind, stay curious, and never stop asking questions. Because the truth is out there, somewhere, waiting to be discovered.